November 1995. Johnny Carson had been retired for 3 years when a package arrived at his Malibu home with a royal seal on it. Inside was a videotape and a handwritten note that simply said, "Please watch this alone, Diana." What he saw on that tape would haunt him for the rest of his life. Johnny Carson was enjoying his retirement. After 30 years hosting The Tonight Show, he'd finally stepped away from the spotlight in 1992. He spent his days playing tennis, reading, and enjoying the peace of his Malibu beach house. He'd earned it. But on November 14th, 1995, that peace was shattered by a delivery that would change everything he thought he knew about fame, pressure, and what it really means to live in a gilded cage. The package arrived by private courier. No return address, just that unmistakable royal seal embossed on thick cream-colored paper. Johnny's assistant brought it to him with a confused look. "This just came for you." The courier said it was urgent and extremely confidential. Johnny took the package. It was heavier than he expected. Inside was a VHS tape in a plain black case and a handwritten note on personal stationery. The handwriting was elegant but hurried, like someone had written it in a moment of desperation. The note read, "Dear Mr. Carson, please watch this alone. I need someone to know the truth. Someone who understands what it's like to smile for millions while dying inside. I've watched you for years, and I believe you're the only one who might understand. This is not for broadcast. This is just for you. With deepest respect, Diana." Johnny dismissed his assistant, closed the door to his private study, and slid the tape into his VCR. He had no idea what he was about to see, but something about that note, the vulnerability in those words, made his hands shake slightly as he pressed play. The screen flickered to life. Princess Diana appeared, sitting in what looked like a private room. No makeup team, no carefully arranged lighting, just Diana, looking directly at the camera with eyes that carried the weight of the world. "Mr. Carson," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I hope this reaches you. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion into your retirement, but I'm recording this because I need someone to know what's really happening. Not the palace version, not the media version, the truth." She paused, gathering herself. "I've been told my entire adult life how to sit, how to smile, how to wave, what to say, and more importantly, what never to say. I've been the perfect princess, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, at least on the outside. But Mr. Carson, I'm drowning, and no one can see it because I'm drowning in a designer gown with a smile on my face." Johnny leaned forward, completely transfixed. This wasn't the Princess Diana the world knew. This was someone completely unguarded, speaking from a place of desperate honesty. "I watched your show for years," Diana continued. "Even in London, we'd get the broadcasts. And I noticed something about you that I don't think most people saw. Behind all the jokes and the perfect timing, there was loneliness. I could see it. Maybe because I understood it. You were surrounded by millions of people every night, but somehow completely alone. That's what my life has become." She looked down at her hands, then back at the camera. "The divorce will be finalized soon. The palace is already controlling the narrative. I'll be painted as difficult, unstable, attention-seeking. They'll make sure the world sees me as the problem, and maybe I am. Maybe wanting to be treated like a human being instead of a symbol makes me the problem." Diana's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed forward. "I'm making this tape because in a few days I'm going to do an interview with the BBC. A real interview where I tell my side of the story. And I know what's going to happen. The palace will destroy me for it. The media will tear me apart. Half the world will hate me, and the other half will use my pain as entertainment." She wiped her eyes quickly. "But before that happens, I wanted someone to know the real reason I'm speaking out. It's not revenge. It's not attention. It's because I have 2 sons who need to understand that their mother isn't crazy, isn't vindictive, isn't any of the things they're going to hear. I'm just a woman who made the mistake of falling in love with a fairy tale that turned out to be a nightmare." Johnny sat frozen in his chair. He'd interviewed thousands of people, seen countless moments of vulnerability, but this was different. This was someone reaching across the void of fame to connect with the only person she thought might understand. "Mr. Carson, you once said in an interview that the hardest part of fame isn't the attention, It's the loneliness of knowing that everyone thinks they know you, but nobody actually does. I read that quote, and I cried because it was the first time I'd heard someone articulate exactly how I feel. Diana leaned closer to the camera. They're going to say I'm paranoid. They're going to say I'm mentally unstable. But I need you to know, I need someone to know that I'm not crazy. I'm just trapped. Trapped in a system that values the institution over the individual. Trapped in a marriage that ended years ago, but can't officially end because of what it represents. Trapped in a role that's slowly killing me. She paused, composing herself. I've thought about ending it all. I won't lie to you about that. There have been nights when the only thing that stopped me was thinking about William and Harry finding out, thinking about what that would do to them. So I kept smiling, kept waving, kept playing the part. But something broke in me recently. I realized that staying silent, being perfect, being what everyone wants me to be, that's also destroying me. Just more slowly. So I decided to speak, to tell the truth, to risk everything, because at least then I'd know I tried to be real, to be honest, to be me. Diana's eyes filled with tears. The Tonight Show was my escape. Those nights when everything was falling apart, when Charles was with Camilla, when the palace was issuing another statement about my behavior, when the press was camped outside my door, I'd watch your show. I'd watch you make America laugh. And for 90 minutes, I could forget that I was Princess Diana. I could just be a woman watching television, laughing at jokes, feeling normal. I never got to meet you. I wanted to. There were plans a few times, but the palace always blocked it. They said American television was beneath royal dignity, but I think they were afraid of what might happen if I spent time with someone who understood what it's like to perform happiness while suffocating inside. She smiled sadly. You retired 3 years ago. I remember reading about it, and I thought, good for you, you got out. You walked away from the applause and the pressure and the constant performance. You chose yourself. I envy that more than you'll ever know. Diana wiped her eyes again, her composure cracking. I'm recording this because after the BBC interview airs, things are going to get worse before they get better. If they ever get better. The palace has unlimited resources and unlimited motivation to destroy my credibility, and I'm just one woman trying to tell the truth. So I wanted someone, somewhere, to have this tape, to have a record of what I was thinking and feeling before everything explodes. Someone who might understand, someone who lived a life of performing for millions while dying inside. She looked directly at the camera, directly at Johnny. Mr. Carson, thank you for the escapes you gave me over the years. Thank you for reminding me that it's possible to be human even when the whole world is watching. And thank you for listening to this, even though I have no right to burden you with it. Diana stood up, preparing to end the recording, but then she sat back down, as if remembering something important. There's one more thing I need to say, something I need someone to know before everything changes. She took a deep breath. They're going to say I was paranoid. They're going to say I was making up conspiracies. But I need you to know, there are forces within the palace, within the establishment, that see me as a threat. Not because of anything I've done, but because I represent change. Because I showed emotion when royals are supposed to be stoic. Because I touched AIDS patients when everyone else was afraid. Because I spoke about eating disorders and depression when royals are supposed to pretend those things don't exist. I've made them uncomfortable, and uncomfortable royals are dangerous royals. I don't know what they'll do to silence me, but I know they'll do something. They always do. They'll leak stories to the press. They'll cut off my funding. They'll limit my access to my children. They'll do whatever it takes to remind me that I exist at their pleasure, not as a person with rights. Diana's voice grew stronger, more determined. But I'm not going to be silent anymore. I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to show the world that fairy tales aren't real, that being a princess isn't magical, that behind the tiaras and the ceremonies and the perfect photographs is a woman who just wants to be free. She looked exhausted suddenly, like she'd been holding this in for years, and finally releasing it had drained everything out of her. If you're watching this, Mr. Carson, it means the tape reached you. It means someone successfully smuggled it out of Kensington Palace, and got it to California without the palace intercepting it. Small miracles still happen, I suppose. I don't expect you to do anything with this. I'm not asking you to speak out or defend me or anything like that. You've earned your peace, and I won't disturb it. This tape is just for you, just so someone knows, just so I'm not completely alone in this. Diana smiled, that famous Diana smile that had captivated the world. But this time it was different. This time it was real. Sad, but real. Thank you, Mr. Carson, for everything, for the laughs, for the escapes, for understanding, even though we never met, what it's like to be famous and completely alone at the same time. She reached toward the camera. God bless you, and if you ever think of me after whatever comes next, please remember that I tried. I tried to be good. I tried to be real. I tried to matter for the right reasons. The screen went black. Johnny Carson sat in his study, staring at the blank television screen, tears streaming down his face. He rewound the tape and watched it again, and then a third time. Each viewing made it more clear. This was a woman preparing for war. A woman who knew exactly what speaking out would cost her, but who decided the price of silence was even higher. Johnny didn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about Diana's words, about her comparison of their lives, about the loneliness of performing for millions. He'd never felt more understood and more helpless at the same time. 3 days later, the BBC aired Diana's interview with Martin Bashir, the interview where she said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." The interview that shocked the world and sent the palace into damage control mode. Johnny watched it with a different understanding than everyone else. While the world saw a sensational interview, Johnny saw a woman keeping a promise to herself, a woman refusing to be silent anymore, regardless of the consequences. The palace response was swift and brutal. Diana was stripped of her title, Her Royal Highness. Her funding was cut, her role was diminished. The media, fed by palace sources, began a campaign to paint her as unstable, vengeful, a bad mother. Johnny wanted to speak out, wanted to defend her, wanted to tell the world that they had it all wrong. But he couldn't, not without betraying Diana's trust, not without revealing the existence of a tape she'd made specifically to remain private. So he did the only thing he could do. He wrote her a letter. "Dear Diana," it began, "I received your tape, I watched it, I understood it, and I want you to know that you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not any of the things they're saying you are. You're brave, you're honest, you're real, and the world needs more of that, even if the palace doesn't." He continued, "I spent 30 years performing happiness. I know exactly what you described, that suffocation of smiling while dying inside. And I want you to know that speaking your truth, as terrifying as it is, was the right thing to do. Not for the palace, not for the press, but for you and for your sons, who will one day understand that their mother was a warrior." Johnny sent the letter through the same courier who delivered Diana's tape. He never knew if she received it. But 2 weeks later, a single white rose was delivered to his Malibu home with a card that said simply, "Thank you for seeing me, D." That was the last communication between them. 21 months later, on August 31st, 1997, Johnny Carson woke up to the news that Princess Diana had died in a car crash in Paris. He immediately went to his study, locked the door, and played the tape again. Her words took on a haunting new meaning. "I don't know what they'll do to silence me, but I know they'll do something." Johnny never believed it was an accident. Not because of conspiracy theories or paranoia, but because he'd seen Diana's face on that tape. He'd heard the fear in her voice. He'd understood exactly what she was saying between the lines. "I'm a threat to people with unlimited power, and threats don't stay threats forever." But Johnny Carson never spoke publicly about any of it. He couldn't. Diana had trusted him with her truth, and he wasn't going to betray that trust, even after her death. The tape remained in Johnny's private collection. After he died in 2005, his family found it while going through his possessions. They watched it, understood immediately how sensitive it was, and made a decision. They would keep it private, just as Diana had intended, just as Johnny had honored for the rest of his life. But they did share something. Johnny's letter to Diana, which he'd kept a copy of, and Diana's response, that single white rose and note. They donated these to the Smithsonian with strict instructions that they not be displayed until 2025, a full 28 years after Diana's death. This year, those items went on display. And for the first time, the world learned that Princess Diana and Johnny Carson had shared a connection that nobody knew about. A connection built on mutual understanding of what it means to be famous, lonely, and desperately trying to be real in a world that only wants the performance. The existence of the tape itself has never been officially confirmed. The palace has no comment. Johnny's family won't discuss it beyond acknowledging sensitive materials in his collection. But those who know, who've seen the letter and the rose and understand what they represent, they know the tape exists. They know that Princess Diana, in her darkest moment, reached out to the one person she thought might understand. And that Johnny Carson, the king of late night who'd interviewed everyone from presidents to movie stars, considered that tape the most important thing anyone had ever shared with him. Here's what matters about November 14th, 1995. It wasn't important because of scandal or conspiracy. It was important because two people, separated by an ocean and completely different lives, found connection in the shared experience of suffocating under the weight of fame. Diana told Johnny that watching The Tonight Show was her escape from being Princess Diana. And in making that tape for him, she gave Johnny something too, a reminder that his work had mattered. That those 30 years of making America laugh had given comfort to someone who desperately needed it. We live in a world obsessed with the public faces of famous people. We follow their Instagram posts, read their tweets, consume their carefully crafted images. But we forget that behind every public figure is a private person, often struggling with the same loneliness and fear as everyone else, just with millions of people watching. Princess Diana knew that. Johnny Carson knew that. And for one brief moment, captured on a tape that the world will probably never see, they acknowledged it to each other. The most powerful moments aren't always the ones that get broadcast. Sometimes they're the quiet ones, the private ones, the moments when someone says, "I see you, I understand you, you're not alone." That's what Diana gave Johnny. And by keeping her secret, by honoring her trust, Johnny gave Diana something she'd rarely experienced. Someone who valued her privacy more than the story, her dignity more than the revelation, her humanity more than the headlines. If this story moved you, subscribe for more untold stories about the private moments behind public figures. Share this with someone who needs to remember that fame doesn't erase loneliness, it often amplifies it. And drop a comment about a time when someone saw the real you when everyone else only saw what they wanted to see. Because sometimes the most important conversations are the ones nobody else hears. Sometimes the deepest connections happen in private. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is reach out to someone and say, "I'm not okay, and I need you to know that." Princess Diana did that. Johnny Carson honored it. And their secret connection reminds us that behind every smile captured by cameras, there's a human being hoping someone sees past the performance to the person underneath.